I remember standing there, the lights of the auditorium feeling too bright, the air thick with nervous energy, and the faint scent of cheap disinfectant. My name had just been called, years of scraping by, of working 3 jobs while juggling textbooks, of sitting with my own uncomfortable feelings so I could learn to sit with others. It all culminated in this moment. Receiving that slim piece of paper, my therapy license, felt like holding a physical piece of my soul. I should have felt invincible, on top of the world, really. And for a second, I almost did. I gripped the license, smiled for the photographer, shook hands with the board members. But then my eyes did what they'd been doing all morning. They drifted to the front row. The section I paid a ridiculous amount of money to reserve, 12 padded chairs, marked with little gold placards. Reserved for the family of Riley, my last name. Empty. All 12 of them. Not my mom, not my stepdad David, not even my Uncle Thomas, who'd initially grumbled about the travel, but promised he'd be there to see me finally become a real professional. Whatever he meant by that. Funny how real professional turned out to be less appealing than, well, I get to that. Let me back up. Getting that therapy license wasn't just passing a test, it was crossing the finish line. I sometimes thought I'd die trying to reach graduate school internship, supervision hours, my own therapy. It was relentless, emotionally, financially, physically. There were nights I fell asleep fully clothed on top of my covers, too tired to even pull them back. Days I ate instant noodles or cold cereal because I couldn't afford groceries, despite working retail or waiting tables whenever I wasn't in class or clinic. My family, they weren't exactly the cheerleading type growing up. Any academic achievement was met with suspicion or backhanded compliments, straight as, "Trying too hard, aren't you?" Or "Don't act like you're better than everyone." My interest in psychology, talking about feelings, that was seen as weak, touchy-feely, or just plain weird. Mom would say, "Riley, why do you have to make everything so complicated? Can't you just be normal?" Normal to them meant not dwelling on things, not overthinking, and certainly not wanting a career that involved sitting and listening to people all day. All that school just to listen to people complain. David, my stepdad, once scoffed he was a man who measured success in tangible things, cars, tools, square footage. My chosen path was invisible, soft. "So you just talk to people, how is that a job?" he joked to his friends, loud enough for me to hear always. Followed by a dismissive chuckle. Uncle Thomas, Mom's brother, was worse. His world revolved around money. "Are you ever going to make any real money doing this?" he'd ask. Not out of concern for my well-being, but out of thinly veiled contempt that I wasn't pursuing something lucrative he could brag about or maybe benefit from. Dear, seems like a hobby, not a career, he'd sniff. I invited them to things over the years. My college graduation, they came, but complained about the AITA presentation I gave at a student conference. Mom said it sounded boring. David had a golf thing. Finishing my first year of grad school, Uncle Tom sent a card with $1 in it saying save up for a real job. Their excuses were endless, always prioritizing convenience or their own narrow interests over showing up for mine. "Too busy, can't get off work. It's too far." You know how we feel about big cities, you know how we feel about all that feelings talk. I stopped pushing after a while. I'd send group texts about milestones, getting into my top choice program, finishing a tough internship, which were usually met with silence or sometimes a single thumbs up emoji from my cousin Samantha, who lived on the other side of the country, but always seemed to grasp things others didn't. She was the family diplomat, but also quietly compassionate. But this, becoming a licensed therapist, this was the culmination of 8 years of non-stop grind, mountains of debt, and immense personal growth. I worked night shifts, studied through holidays, missed family events, weddings, even a funeral because I couldn't get time off or afford the trash. Val, I ramen for a week straight, more times than I care to admit. This wasn't just my achievement, it felt like proof that all the struggle had built something real, valuable, and desperately needed in the world. I thought just maybe this time they would see it, that they would finally be proud. That hope, fragile as it was, made me go all in. I drained a significant portion of my savings money. I desperately needed to start my practice and pay off debt to make it impossible for them to have an excuse. $12,000 of my own hard-earned money went towards first-class flights for Mom and David, a spacious rental house near the venue with comfortable beds and nice view, a reservation at a decent restaurant for a celebratory dinner, custom programs with their names listed under honored guests. I even consulted Mom's Facebook page to get her favorite flowers for a centerpiece at the dinner table. I pictured her tearing up when she saw my name on the license, saw her name in the program. I imagined her finally saying the words I'd waited a lifetime to hear. "I'm proud of you, Riley." The days before the ceremony, I called and texted to confirm their planned silence. A knot began to form in my stomach the night before as I was trying to finalize my notes for the brief remarks I was asked to give. My phone buzzed a text from Mom. Riley, not coming. Watching you pick apart people's problems sounds like torture. LOL. We booked a getaway. Instead, enjoy your little speech. Then one from David. Yeah, figured we'd do something fun. Instead, your thing sounds like a real drag. Finally, Uncle Thomas chimed in. Boring official stuff, isn't a scene. Figured you knew that, Thomas. No apology. No hesitation, just dismissal, cruel, casual, complete dismissal. I stared at the screen, the words burning into my retina. $12,000 years of work. My deepest hope, all reduced to a diet. Drag and torture by the people who are supposed to celebrate me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone across the room. I just sat there blinking, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. It wasn't just hurt, it was a profound aching emptiness where hope used to be. Getting through the ceremony. The next day was surreal. I felt like I was floating outside my body, watching myself smile, shake hands, accept the license. My eyes kept flicking to those empty seats, a stark physical representation of their absence and their priorities. It felt like a punchline, only I wasn't laughing at. Later that evening, after the photos and the brief, slightly strained reception where I deflected polite questions about my family, I went back to the rental house. The luxurious, empty rental house I'd paid for them. The catered meal sat untouched in the fridge. I walked through the silent rooms, the custom programs still on the table, their names printed there like ghosts. The carefully arranged flowers and Mom's favorite colors felt like a mockery. It hit me then, not just the hurt, but the humiliation, the deep-seated betrayal I had handed them. This incredible moment, my life's achievement, on a silver platter. And they had tossed it aside for a fleeting escape. I didn't reply to their texts. I didn't call back when Mom left a breezy voicemail 2 days later saying, hope it went well. Send pics if you have time. Instead, I made decisions, quiet ones, deliberate ones. First, I contacted the licensing board. I requested a second ceremonial copy of my license, the fancy one suitable for framing. When it arrived, I found a sleek black frame. I also got one of the photos printed, the one the photographer took right before the ceremony, showing the stage, the audience, and those 12 perfectly arranged, undeniably empty chairs in the front row with the name cards clearly visible. I framed the license with the photo of the empty seats beneath it, then I edged it carefully, added a brief note listing the date and location of the ceremony, and mailed it to my mother's address via a certified mail. No explanation, just the proof of what they missed and what they chose instead. It felt less like revenge and more like a final quiet declaration of reality. The second decision involved money. See, part of how I could afford that extravagant $12,000 expense wasn't just years of saving penny by penny. It was a modest inheritance Grandma Eleanor had left me. She passed away during my second year of grad school. She wasn't wealthy by any means, but she was smart, and she believed in me. She left me about $65,000 in a joint account that my name had been added to when I turned 18. She always told me, Riley, don't waste this on bills or nonsense. Use it when the time is right to build something good, something that matters. Over the years, I've only touched it sparingly, a small bit for emergency rent 1 month, another chunk for travel to out-of-state internships, the biggest portion I'd saved dreaming of using it to open my own small practice someday. Maybe focusing on affordable care for underserved communities. Building something that truly mattered, just like Grandma. What my family didn't know was that in her original will, Grandma had intended to split that money 3 ways between me, Mom, and Uncle Thomas. But about a year before she died, after spending a difficult holiday visit witnessing firsthand how Mom and David treated me, how they did missed my work and seemed to view Grandma herself as a burden when she got sick and needed help managing her medication, she changed her will quietly, no drama. She simply rewrote the documents, removed their names, and left it all to me. Riley, she told me gently during one of our last visits, you're the only one I trust to do something good with this. They'll only waste it. Or worse, they'll see it as something they're owed. Because the account was set up as joint with Mom way back when I was a teenager, Mom somehow assumed, or maybe just chose to believe, that she still had easy access to it. She'd been talking for months about how when Riley finally becomes a licensed therapist and gets that money from Eleanor, they could finally do a huge home renovation or fund a lavish trip David wanted to take. I'd heard her mentioning it, but dismissed it as Mom just being Mom. It wasn't until my cousin Samantha mentioned offhand that Mom and David had actually scheduled a contractor to start demo work the very week of my licensing ceremony that I realized the depth of their assumption and entitlement. That contractor never showed up because after I got back from the ceremony, after I sent that package, I logged into that account. I transferred every last cent of that $65,000 into a new account solely under my name. Then I closed the old joint account permanently. For good measure, remembering Grandma's words about doing something good and meaningful, I immediately donated a substantial portion of what was left, about $10,000, to a local nonprofit that provided free mental health services to low-income families. I sent them a note with the donation in loving memory of Eleanor, who believed in building things that matter. It didn't take long for the calls to start. First came the certified package, then the bank statements landing a day or two later. My phone started buzzing like a trap. David was the first to leave a voicemail screaming, "Riley, what the hell have you done? That was your mother's account. That money was meant for the family. You stole it." I didn't flinch. I texted him back, "You're right, it was meant for the family, Grandma. Eleanor left it to the family member she trusted to do something good with it. Guess that wasn't you guys. Or your getaway." I blocked his number. Then came Uncle Thomas. His voice was cold, sharp with disbelief and fury. "Riley, do you have any idea the chaos you've caused? Your mother is hysterical. How could you be so heartless? We had plans for that money." We had plans. That was the core of it. Their plans, never mind. Never Grandma's true intentions. I didn't reply. And then came Mom's calls, several of them. I let them go to voicemail. The early ones were a mix of confusion and hurt, guilt tripping. But the last one, the one where she was sobbing so hard her words came out choked and almost unintelligible, that when I listened to "Riley, please. I didn't know it would hurt you like this. I thought you knew we were just joking. We thought we didn't think it would matter that much." I stopped listening halfway through that sentence. We didn't think it would matter that much. That one line, so clueless, so breathtakingly self-absorbed and dismissive, it told me everything I needed to know. They still didn't get it. They never had. The pain wasn't about missing my moment. It was about the fallout to them, the inconvenience, the loss of expected funds. I didn't call her back. I didn't respond to any of them. I sat quietly at my kitchen table. The silence of my small apartment, a stark contrast to the storm raging on my phone. I looked at a photo of Grandma Eleanor, her kind, knowing eyes seeming to understand. Then I made my final decision. The third thing I did, I logged into my accounts, contacted my lawyer, updated my medical directives. I changed the beneficiary on everything: life insurance, retirement accounts, legal documents, emergency contacts. I named Chloe, who stayed up with me studying until 3 am, fueled by stale pizza and caffeine. Clue. Oh, he who ran mock therapy sessions with me, giving honest, helpful feedback. Chloe, who listened without judgment when I cried about my family's behavior over the years. Chloe, who showed up at that ceremony dressed smartly, beaming with genuine pride, and gave me a hug that felt like a lifeline when I was dying inside. A few days later, I met Chloe for coffee at our favorite spot. I handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a copy of the legal paperwork showing she was now my primary contact for everything. She blinked, looking confused. "Riley, what is this?" I smiled, a real, genuine smile. "It's me," I said softly, "choosing my real family." Her eyes welled up. She didn't say anything for a long moment, just held the envelope, tears tracing past through her surprise. It was all the response I needed. Meanwhile, the calls and texts from Mom, David, and Uncle Thomas didn't stop immediately. Though they became less frequent, they shifted tactics from angry demands to pathetic attempts at guilt tripping, occasionally filtered through a relative. Then a few weeks later, the knock came. It was a Thursday evening. I was finally starting to settle into my new routine, preparing the space for my small practice, feeling a fragile sense of peace, the kind that comes after surviving a hurricane. I was making dinner, the apartment warm and quiet. Knock knock. Not aggressive, not desperate, just insistent, like whoever was on the other side expected the door to open immediately, expected to be welcomed in. My stomach tightened, but I didn't freeze. I walked to the door, looked through the people. Mom and David standing awkwardly on the landing. Mom looked tired, her usual polished appearance slightly frazzled. David had his arms crossed, eyes scanning the hallway. I opened the door about 6 inches, just enough to see them, but not enough for them to push their way in. I didn't speak, I just looked at them. Mom blinked, startled by my lack of immediate reaction, maybe by the quiet strength she saw in my face, or just by the fact that I wasn't the person who used to throw the door open, desperate for a crumb of approval. "Riley," she said, her voice hesitant, "can we come in?" I tilted my head slightly. Why? She looked genuinely taken aback, as if the question was offensive. "Because we need to talk face to face." I leaned against the doorframe, blocking the opening completely. "We could have done that 2 weeks ago, and my licensing ceremony." David snorted from behind her. "Oh, for crying out loud. Are you still holding on to that? It's not like we didn't say sorry. No, I said, my voice calm and steady. You sent me cruel, dismissive texts, blew off a milestone you knew was profoundly important to me, and prioritized a trip over showing up. And you didn't say sorry. You made excuses. Mom's eyes flare. That's not fair. You didn't even give us time to explain. Explain what? I asked. Explain that watching your daughter achieve a lifelong goal sounded painful. Explain that a fun getaway was more important than being there. I paused. Let's be honest, you're not here because you miss me, you're here because the account is empty. David stepped forward, his voice rising angrily. There it is, we knew it, you're being petty. That money wasn't yours to touch. I said, almost smiling. Now we're getting to it. It was Grandma Eleanor's money, and she left it to me because she knew you'd only show up when there was something to take. My voice hardened slightly. She changed her will because she saw what I didn't want to admit for years. That your interest wasn't in supporting me, but in what you could get from me or from her legacy. Mom flinched. She hadn't expected me to know about the will change or to bring up Grandma. You think you're so high and mighty now, don't you? David sneered. Just because you got some piece of paper, you think you're above us. I met his gaze directly. No, I said quietly. I think I finally see you clearly, and I'm done pretending you're something you're not. Mom's voice cracked. Riley, please. These were still your family. That's funny. I said, my arms crossed, now mirroring David's earlier posture, because 2 weeks ago my life's work was painful to watch. But now that the money's not coming suddenly, I'm family and worth flying across the country for. I shook my head. You flew across the country for this confrontation, I said softly. But you couldn't make it across town or across the stage for me. She opened her mouth, but no words came out, just a flicker of something that might have been guilt or shame. In her eyes quickly masked, I started to close the door slowly. That tells me everything I need to know. Mom stepped forward quickly, as if to stop the door, then hesitated. Her voice was small, pleading, can't we just start over? I paused, then I gave my final answer. We already did, I said. I just started without you. And I closed the door. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant either. I just stood there in the quiet of my apartment, listening to the silence on the other side of the door until I heard their footsteps finally retreat, fading down the hallway. The fallout, of course, didn't, and their words spread through the family like wildfire. Samantha texted me later. Heard things got intense. You did what most of us only dream of having the guts to do. But not everyone was on my side. Group chats I was in suddenly went silent, or I was removed. Social media posts appeared that I wasn't tagged in, hinting at family drama without naming names. Mom and David's side of the family, those who had always resented Grandma Eleanor's independence, anyway, acted like I had committed some unforgivable crime by taking the inheritance. One distant uncle whom I hadn't spoken to in 10 years sent me a message that just read, you'll regret this, blood his blood. But I didn't regret it. I went to work. I embraced my role as a therapist. I hung my license on the wall of my small rented office space, not the one I'd mailed to Mom, but a new one framed alongside a photo of me and Chloe on licensing day, both grinning like fools. Bathed in the light of possibility, 3 years passed. They were the hardest years of my national life. Long hours, emotionally draining sessions, navigating the complexities of starting out. I worked through holidays, missed social events, sacrificed sleep. But I grew. I helped people heal, find their voices, process trauma. I sat with them in their darkest moments and celebrated their smallest victories. I became the kind of therapist I had always wanted to be, present, grounded, truly listening, speaking with intention.